El Nino is going to create a very, very harsh winter.
Yes, I can imagine it's going to.
Yeah.
That's why I'm out of here.
And we don't have enough time to get ready
No.
for the snow flies.
Yeah, well, you know what? This is kind of better for me.
Yeah.
Better for me anyway. So,
Yeah.
no, good. Yeah, so keep me posted as to what's gonna, you know, what all needs to get if I can help.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll do. Okay. I'm
And
going to
then
bring up,
you can have your book ready.
and I'll have a book ready. Exactly.
Yes. And
Exactly.
I might have a book ready, and Audrey Lynn might have a book ready.
Oh, I doubt
Hmm.
it.
But you have so much good information. You need to write a book. Just saying. Just write all your information down and put it in a book,
Yeah. Just like that.
just like that.
Okay. And Zoa.
Voila.
Okay. For reals now.
For reals.
We're going to start with Bitcoin. And the reason why is because yesterday and today we saw a major jump. Now, it looks significant. And when we measure it out, it's 14%. So, in a sense, that's pretty big. If this were to happen in foreign exchange, it would be very much, there would be a ripple effect for years. But because it's Bitcoin, we have to zoom out on the weekly chart and we see that really not a whole lot happened.
Means nothing.
Zooming in, we do see on the weekly chart that is, oh, there we go. We do see on the weekly chart that jump. When we go to the daily, we've got the 2 days of jump. But we have a long ways to go before we are above this pivot point here. This pivot point is crucial. It will be a major point simply because this is C. This is market structure right now. We have A up in here, this corner here. We have B down here, C, and then D. So because we would need to get up above C and then use C as support to have a confirmation that we're reversing. But it is good to see that there is a 14% increase here today and yesterday.
Is
Another
that going
thing
to
to
drop? Is that going to
with
drop again?
I I think so. I think it will. And here's why. We've chatted about this in the past. You know, these are the cycles. The tan cycle, that's the bearish or the bullish run. And then we've got this, rust cycle, this rust color. That's the bears. And whenever we see that, we have this pattern 1,064 days of bull movement. And then we have 364 days of bearish movement. And then what do you know? Another 1,064 days of bullish movement. Back down again, 364 days of bearish movement. One more time, 1,064 days of bullish movement. Imagine that. It's like the same every single time. If that pattern continues, we still have a few more weeks
Mm.
before we reach 364 days of bearish movement.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, there's a nice little jump, but we
Is
have a
this
we have a bit ways to go for the pattern to complete, and we also have a bit to go before we can see there's actual strength.
does this have anything to do with the what's it called, the halving
That
halving?
helps. That's right. That
That
helps.
is a four, isn't that a 4 year thing? And you're talking about 1,365, which is kind of like 4 years, isn't it?
1,064. Yeah, it's getting close. It's about what is this, Sarah? How many days is it? That is, yeah, well, 1,064 days. It's from November 22 to October 25. So yeah,
Yeah, but then
three.
when you add in that year of bear, that's almost 4 years. That's why I'm wondering if that whole cycle going up
Ah,
and then
yeah, yeah, the
down,
whole
is that
cycle.
having anything to do with the halving or not?
Yeah, that'll help.
What is that?
I can't remember. Like does the value change? Something happens every 4 years that they change the. I'm sure
They
you could.
actually they change the amount of Bitcoin that can be mined. So when miners, I'm going to be a little bit shaky on some of these numbers, but miners in the past, they churn through the algorithm. They perform these computations. Audrey Lynn and Audrey, you'll remember last year in November about the midnight glacier drop, how we were using our computers to process through the computations, and that if you solved one of the computations, you got midnight as a reward. Well, that uh, that principle is not new. That's something that Bitcoin has been doing, and you can buy computing. And typically speaking, these are graphics processing compute, and they are churning through all of the algorithmic combinations to unlock, basically, or what they call mine a Bitcoin. Whenever one gets mined, it's in circulation now. There's only so many Bitcoin out there, and as time goes on, the amount of Bitcoin that is possible to mine goes down. In the past, if I remember correctly, it was like the last time it halved, which was the last time rather that there was this occurring. This was, I have to think about it for a second. I think it was in 2024. I'm looking at the chart here, trying to remember where that was, but it was 900 Bitcoin a day that could be mined. And then at that next halving, it made it where now you could only mine up to 450 Bitcoin per day. And so another halving occurs. Now it's going to be 225 Bitcoin per day. And that's the max that can be mined. So every time that there is a limitation of how much can be mined, there's a jump in price. Whether or not this was specifically related to that, I don't know. I do not keep track of the news like I used to. But does that explain the halving?
Yeah, it explains. Yeah, and then how it just always has occurred to me, being fairly uninformed about Bitcoin, that people know that's coming. It's on a schedule. They know it's coming, and I would think that there's ways to game it or play it or manipulate what happens around it. So it's always felt like a game for the big players or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. 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 And Bitcoin, I'm not convinced that it's a good thing. I think that there are a lot of Bitcoiners out there that their intentions are good, but I believe that they've been deceived in that this technology, this Bitcoin thing, was foundational for crypto and blockchain. However, it's from 2009. A lot has occurred since then. A lot of advancements have come to fruition. And so I'm not convinced that Bitcoin is the answer. However, when we see that the contracts on Bitcoin that are being issued by the exchanges, they are issuing those contracts at a rate 6% higher than what is mined, you have the potential for manipulation. Why would they do that? What's the purpose of taking something like Bitcoin, which is supposed to be a decentralized ledger and, banking for all, free banking for all? Why would they do that? Other than to have greater control over the flow of that Bitcoin. Why is it that, back in 2017, you could get a $3,500 computer to mine Bitcoin? And you would be able to pay for your electricity about 3 or 4 times over with that machine. But then by the end of 2018, 2019, you couldn't do it with that same computer. Now you had to use a stronger computer to do it. And then it got into the point where in 2021, 2022, you needed an entire building of computers to become profitable. Today, the only people who are contributing in any real sense of significance is down to 3 different companies that have mining infrastructure capable of mining Bitcoin. If this was truly decentralized, we wouldn't see a centralization of the miners.
Aren't there like whole, I guess it's still part of those 3 companies, but there's whole towns in certain countries that are, there's whole communities or villages or whatever that they get turned into a Bitcoin mining. I mean, it's like really impacting the village badly.
Oh, yeah. It's just another form of data center.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the difference is that they're not collecting data. They're just computing it.
And like all the electricity is going to that and not to the, like people don't have electricity to cook their food, or I might be a few years behind in this, but I just remember hearing about that and just like, oh man, this is.
Today, if you want to start a mining operation, you should not expect to spend less than $20 million to get started.
Wow.
You know how much
away from a $3,000 computer in your back room.
Right. Oh yeah, huge difference. And it's crazy because, and I say it's crazy because, this brings up an important conversation about decentralization and how a true decentralized infrastructure becomes less expensive, not more. In Cardano, and it's just one example, there are other chains that do this as well. In Cardano, the more nodes there are, the less expensive it becomes. Nodes back in the day, when you first wanted to get a node, you were looking at a computer that, would cost $2,500, $3,500, brand new, to be able to run a node on Cardano. Today, you can do it with a computer that's about $1,200. Because it's actually efficient in that the more decentralization there is, the less expensive it gets. With Bitcoin, it's only becoming more and more expensive to become a miner of the asset. So we're watching the centralization of this asset, this gold standard, as it were.
And doesn't it also seem like that would have been known by some at the outset? Like it's not a surprise that it's gone that way?
Oh, yeah, it's not a surprise at all. I mean, the whole reason why Ethereum was put together was because they recognized the limitations of Bitcoin. And that was 2016 or 15 or something like that.
Right.
5 years after Bitcoin got started.
Right.
You know, and then Ethereum came out and there were already problems being noticed in 2016 and to 2017. There were issues. And the team that was working on Ethereum, that decentralized autonomous organization, in the end of 2016, they split apart almost down the middle. Because they said, "Oh, this was wonderful. We developed this idea called proof of stake instead of proof of work. This is a wonderful thing, but we recognize that Ethereum is flawed. Why? Well, because inexplicably transactions just don't process and the money's gone. So if you send money to somewhere else, or if you're sending money to yourself, just randomly, inexplicably, some transactions just don't go through. And you don't know whether or not it's going to be a $2 transaction or a $200,000 transaction. There's no way of knowing when it will occur next. So we better not continue with this. And yet, today, Ethereum is coin number 2 in market capitalization.
Is that still the case though? I hadn't heard that. Like,
Indeed.
The transactions just wouldn't go through. That's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, it is a pretty big deal. It's like you're just flipping a coin every time you push send on a transaction on the Ethereum network.
Is that still happening though?
I'm not sure when it has occurred last, but it is random.
Wow.
And this is actually one of the reasons why Cortal was started. If you go read the documentation of Cortal, they explain, here's why we're building Cortal. It's because Ethereum was flawed from the beginning. We didn't build it correctly. And a lot of the people from Ethereum went on to build Cardano, and that was a completely different trajectory because they used a different programming language. Instead of using the common programming languages that really they were designed for the internet. They weren't designed for blockchain. They were designed for, building websites and accessing databases. And it wasn't wrong. It wasn't proper. It worked to a certain point. And so the nonprofit Cardano, the organization called Cardano, they use ADA as their in-game currency, their token. That infrastructure for that blockchain uses a different programming language so that everything becomes it becomes verified using math instead of language. It's a mathematical programming language, not a not a word-based, or like what we typically see in programming language, or strings of words and abbreviations and so on and so forth, where when it's a math-based programming language, there's less ambiguity.
Mm-hmm.
Great questions. In Bitcoin dominance, we see it still below 60%, back inside this range that we've seen it hover ever since August 2025. Silver continuing to rise, looking like we were looking at this earlier this week. We saw it yesterday jump up above that long-term trend line, and we'll see whether or not it follows my little squiggly line here. Probably within the next couple weeks. Gold jumped up a little bit yesterday from its resistance that it was experiencing around that 4,400 mark. We are now pressing upwards above 45 right now. Still has to get up above the previous high, which is back over here at 48.94, and hopefully find support there in order to go up. Gold-silver ratio dropped a little bit over the last couple of days, meaning that both gold and silver rising together, silver's catching up. In the oil markets, we're seeing the support from August 5th, around $75 a barrel, now sitting at $86 a barrel, creating a new high. It has to get up before, if it's going to be bullish, it has to get above 93. That was the most previous high. And in the markets, we see a drop in the Dow Jones. It is expected, I do know this much, it is expected, and maybe this contributed to the rise in Bitcoin over the last couple of days. But this drop in the Dow Jones Average Industrial Index is attributed to the expected rise in interest rates next spring. They expect it to go up 0.25%, which that's a big amount.
How much percent?
0.25%.
Oh, okay.
It seems like a small amount, but
Yes.
in their world, that because it's expected, and that announcement came out earlier this week. I think it was on Tuesday. Maybe that was Monday, but that announcement came out from the Federal Reserve, and so then everybody's like, "Oh no! Quick, let's short the dollar." Remember, the markets are just an indicator of the emotionality of the traders. The Japanese Nikkei in the Asian markets showed a nice little spring of life there from the end of July going into the middle of August, retracing back down, looking like it's got support around 65,000. We'll see if it maintains. We're watching the Japanese yen continue to rise, even after that big bankers candle that we saw, bringing the price down to 155 yen per dollar. On looking like it's using that old trend line as a guide to come back up. In tech, we've got Amazon sitting around at 261. Google still expanding in this opening fan pattern, this opening pennant, sitting right now basically at the middle. Nvidia saw a little breath of life there at the beginning of August, looking like it's coming back to find support around that $213 level. Oracle now at 141, risen from the most previous low at the end of July. Ways to go, though, before it rises back to its former glory. Palantir saw that breath of life there in beginning of August. And isn't that funny? Breath of life from Grim Reaper when it comes to data. Tesla, having that low at the end of July, has come back up, but it's got a long ways to go before it proves bullish. Now on to Ethereum. You can see it also experienced a big jump. And this is why that Bitcoin dominance really hasn't moved a whole lot. It rose for sure, went up, came right back down again. And, that fluctuation, that volatility would have just been in the throes of trading. So as people trade money back and forth, it kind of gets itself settled out. It looks like Bitcoin was rising in dominance, but really what that is a bunch of people buying Bitcoin and then diversifying, moving the money into other cryptos. So we saw that, basketball bouncing, so to speak. If we go to the hour chart, we can see a little bit more how that occurred, how it unfolded. Big jump there on the 19th, yesterday, coming back down to below the support that gave that jump, and then coming up again, going back down. This is just money flows. We're just watching the money flows. And then in Ethereum, a steady rise. Simply because when people were putting their money into Bitcoin, they were moving it back out, putting it into the altcoins. And we can see that reflected on the total 3, the market capitalization excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. You can see actually that started 6 o'clock in the morning yesterday. ADA also experiencing a big jump from its lows that we saw there in the beginning of the week. Up 17%, still a ways to go before we become bullish. A major level for us to overcome is that 23-24 cents US. Midnight also got a little bit of an injection of liquidity over the last little while. That says that Midnight is on the radar. It's still very much a small market capitalization, but it's on the radar. XRP got a big boost in this last day and a half, 2 days. Up 31%. I met with Wayne Peters on Tuesday morning, and he was saying his headlines were covered with the news of how XRP was going to take over the banking institutions. We're here to stay. We covered that back in March, I think it was, where the SWIFT system declared that they were building their own blockchain. So XRP will obviously not be used to facilitate those transactions, replacing SWIFT. But that doesn't stop people from believing. And this is another one of those indicators where it's like, it's the people's belief that creates these emotionalities. And we watch that play out in real time. Right now, tons of people are very excited about XRP. Why? Because it hasn't created a new high since May. BitTensor also rising up over the last couple of days, creating a new high. Still has a ways to go before rising above the highs of July. On the AI side of things, decentralized AI, we have Fetch, the super alliance between several different developers. They are weak. They still have a ways to go to call this movement bullish. I think what we've seen is just an influx. Whether it's related to a Bitcoin halving or if it's related to, the people recognizing that the interest rates are going down. We got to move our money out of the dollar, otherwise things are just going to get worse. That pullback is likely where we're seeing the liquidity go. Gold, silver, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and then the chains below them. Even Polygon saw a breath of life get this earlier this week. Still, it's not bullish. Desync, one of the larger companies that are in decentralized storage, also got a rise, but we saw a lot more volatility in July. Clearpool, clearly getting some liquidity jumping in and out real quick. We saw it jump up there yesterday. It jumped up 21% only to drop right back down again in the same 4 hours. If we go to the 1 hour chart, we can see it actually occurred within 1 hour. Let's go down to the 5-minute chart. Look at that. It all happened in, oh wait, where is it? Did that literally occur in that much time? Yes, it did. That was a 5-minute bar.
Jeez. So what? Somebody sold it high and then not again? Is that kind of how that?
Yeah, so the price of something is always worth whatever someone's willing to pay. And so someone bought probably a large volume down low with a bid to sell. And because someone saw the volume, but probably a bunch of people saw the volume, they went ahead and threw their money in. This, when I say volume, it's Clearpool. What is the market capitalism? Let's go see what the market cap on Clearpool is, because then we can see kind of an idea of how much liquidity would it take to fluctuate. Well, it's only 17.4 million market capitalization, so it doesn't take much for it to I'm gonna pop up. It doesn't take much for it to do something. That liquidity rise, that this is the market capitalization, right? It has been increasing, but what would occur is that these would be the retail traders. These are people who are watching the charts, 5 to 10 hours a day. And they're just studying and studying and studying and studying, and they're watching the chain. They're watching for volume. When they see that someone, like a whale, they call them, when they come in with a bunch of liquidity, they start buying because, oh, look, someone with a lot of money bought. That means that they must know that it's going up. So then they all go and buy. But that person, whoever bought, has got a target. People with lots of money, when they go into cryptos, they know what they're doing. And so what they do is that they put their money in with a stop on that trade, saying, when we reach this much profit, go ahead and sell. This is the same strategy that Elon made with Doge. Before Doge was really anything, and it still is, it really is nothing. It's just a meme coin. But Doge, a year before he even said it was going to be used in the Department of Government Efficiency, a year before that, he just tweeted out saying, I'm going to buy a bunch of Doge. But he had already bought it when he made the tweet. So then people ran to go buy it because he said he was going to. Meanwhile, his position made 60% in a day. And then he sold. It's the same strategy. Someone finds a market capitalization for something that's, very low market cap, and they go in with a large amount.
It's almost like they go, watch this.
Yep. Watch this. I'm going to make a bunch of money because I'm just going to watch a bunch of people, knee-jerk reaction, put a bunch of money in, and then I'll have no problem selling. Why? Because everybody's a believer. They call those market movers. Superverse in the gaming world didn't really go up a whole lot. We're seeing huge rises all over the place. This one only went up 8%. And that's because the gaming industry is going to be a little while. But look at this, the meme Bitcoin NPC, which stands for non-playable coin, at a 43% rise over the last day. SPX also with a big jump at 25% rise. Those are the charts for the day.
What's the three-letter thing for not? Is it NPC non-playing character, or
Non-playable character.
and so this is non-playable coin?
Well, it's still non-playable character. They created a meme and they call it non-playable character, and then they put a coin behind it.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And it's really to make fun of the purpose that they did it was to make fun of a lot of people who are within the financial world who are non-playable characters. You can't they're just going to run the program, so to speak. When you're this is referencing in role-playing games when people are controlling their character and they walk into a town, there's going to be a bunch of characters that are in the town. You got over there, there's the barkeep, and over there, there's the blacksmith, and there's the innkeeper. And so you can go and talk to those players, but you can't play them. They only regurgitate a program back to your character. So that's the premise of the non-playable character and the ecosystem that's around that coin.
Well, and aren't there people kind of saying that like that's what we're living in, like that we're surrounded by non-playable characters? And then some people go, everybody's a non-playable character. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not like I can play the character of another. Yeah, no, exactly. But they are in that realm. They are referencing the people who just regurgitate the program. They're not it's the distinction is that they are not capable of creating their own replies.
Mm-hmm. Which does seem very relevant.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to bring up the occurrence that happened last week, where I started the call off with my venting. I aired out my dirty laundry, as it were, and it was, it resulted in me misrepresenting a conversation that I had with Audrey's friend. And my reaction was, and in the moment I was still, I'll talk about the moment where I felt conflict. And in that feeling of conflict, I reacted defensively. And that exasperated a problem. And I interpreted it as Kim disengaging. She didn't want to talk about it anymore, and I used the words that she stormed off. And I recognize, and I just recognized I used her name again. I'll make sure I'll end the stream actually, because then it's safer.